The rain hammered the roof of the mountain veterinary clinic as if trying to force its way inside. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off stainless steel and soaked boots. On the exam table lay a German shepherd, massive chest still, amber eyes half open and empty. A woman stood at the foot of the table, shaking, her hands clenched into fists. "He's already dead, stop," she screamed, her voice breaking apart under the weight of certainty. The veterinarian lowered her stethoscope and stepped back, face drawn and pale. "There's no heartbeat," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." The room filled with silence so heavy it seemed to press against the walls. Then the doors opened. A man stepped inside, rain dripping from his jacket, posture rigid with discipline. He looked out of place and perfectly composed at the same time. His name was Ethan Cole, former Navy SEAL, recently returned to civilian life, a man who had learned to operate when chaos was at its worst. At his side sat another German shepherd, older, calm, watching everything. Ethan didn't rush. He didn't argue. He simply moved closer to the table, eyes focused, breathing slow. "Give me 30 seconds, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried authority earned the hard way. The veterinarian hesitated, then nodded. The woman shook her head violently. "You can't, he's gone." Ethan placed his hands lower on the dog's chest than anyone expected. Not CPR. Not defibrillation. Something else. His fingers pressed with deliberate precision, following a rhythm burned into his muscles from years of battlefield medicine. He leaned close to the dog's ear and whispered, "Stay." The room held its breath. The rain outside softened to a whisper. The woman sobbed, turning away. Then the veterinarian froze. "Wait," she said sharply. "Did you see that?" A faint shudder rippled beneath Ethan's hands. The dog's chest twitched, barely perceptible, like a spark struggling to survive. The monitors remained silent, but hope cracked through the despair. Ethan adjusted his pressure, slower now, controlled. Seconds stretched unbearably long. Then, impossibly, a shallow breath rasped free. The room erupted into gasps. The woman spun back, tears streaming, disbelief written across her face. The veterinarian moved fast, issuing commands, oxygen hissing into place. Ethan stepped back, hands shaking only now that it was over. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He only watched as life, fragile and stubborn, clawed its way back. Outside, the rain kept falling, unaware that everything inside had just changed. By morning, the town knew his name. Ethan Cole. The man who brought a dead dog back to life. Phones rang nonstop at the clinic, and strangers gathered outside, whispering as if standing near something holy. Ethan hated it. He sat alone in a narrow hallway, elbows on his knees, staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. His dog, Ranger, lay at his feet, calm and unmoved by the attention. Dr. Mason, the veterinarian, found him there. "What you did," she said carefully, "wasn't standard. People are asking questions." Ethan nodded. They should. He didn't offer explanations. He never had. The miracle didn't wait long before demanding a price. That afternoon, another emergency arrived. A second German shepherd, younger, leaner, bleeding from the chest after a highway crash. His handler, a woman named Claire, clutched the stretcher, eyes wild with hope when she saw Ethan. "You," she said. "You're the one. Please, do it again." Ethan felt the weight settle immediately. He approached the table and knew before he touched the dog. This was different. The stillness felt final. The injuries were catastrophic. Dr. Mason shook her head once, almost imperceptibly. "Ethan," she warned softly. Claire grabbed his sleeve. "Don't stop," she pleaded. "He can't die. Not him." Ethan tried anyway. Not because he believed, but because he couldn't walk away. His hands moved, precise, controlled, searching for a response that never came. The monitor screamed flat and merciless. Nothing stirred beneath his palms. "Stop," Dr. Mason said firmly, placing a hand on his arm. Ethan froze. Slowly he stepped back. Claire collapsed against the table, sobbing, her grief raw and unfiltered. Then she looked at Ethan, pain sharpening into accusation. "Why did you save the other one?" she demanded. "Why not mine?" There was no answer that could survive that question. Ethan left the room, Ranger pressed tightly against his leg, grounding him as the sounds of loss echoed behind them. Outside, the sky darkened again, clouds rolling in heavy and low. That night, Ethan sat alone in his small cabin, the applause of the town replaced by silence. Memories he had buried clawed their way back. Another night, another life he couldn't save. He stared into the dark and wondered if the miracle had been a mistake. Ranger rested his head on Ethan's knee, steady and warm. Ethan closed his eyes, knowing one truth he could not escape. Trying didn't always mean winning. Sometimes it only meant staying. The fire came without warning. A low explosion shook the valley, sirens slicing through the night as smoke rose from the industrial warehouses near the river. Ethan was already awake. Ranger stood instantly, alert, tail low, eyes bright with purpose. At the scene, firefighters shouted over roaring flames. "There's a kid missing," someone yelled. 8 years old, ran back inside. Ethan didn't wait for permission. He clipped Ranger's harness and followed Captain Ruiz through a side entrance choked with smoke. Heat pressed in from every direction, metal groaning overhead. Ranger moved with certainty, nose low, guiding them through debris and darkness. He stopped near a collapsed shelf and whined softly. Beneath it lay a small boy, unconscious, face streaked with soot. Ethan checked for a pulse and found only uncertainty. Fear surged, sharp and paralyzing, but Ranger nudged his arm, insistent. Ethan inhaled, steadying himself. This wasn't a miracle. This was work. He cleared the airway, adjusted the boy's position, and began careful compressions, slower and gentler than before. Smoke burned his lungs. Time slipped. Then the boy coughed. A weak breath followed, then another. "We've got him," Ruiz shouted. Paramedics took over outside, oxygen masks snapping into place as the ambulance doors closed. Ethan leaned against a truck, legs trembling. Ranger pressed into him, tail wagging once, calm and certain. Morning broke quietly. The boy survived. The dog from the clinic stabilized. The town gathered again, but this time Ethan didn't feel trapped by their eyes. Dr. Mason told him there would be no investigation. No blame. Only gratitude. An offer followed, to help train handlers to teach patients instead of myths. Ethan accepted without ceremony. Weeks later he worked at a small facility on the edge of town, helping injured working dogs recover. No cameras. No miracles. Just persistence. Ranger stayed by his side, older now, slower but unwavering. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Ethan watched the dogs rest and felt something loosen inside him. He hadn't saved everyone. He never would. But he had stayed when it mattered. The world often demands certainty before effort. Faith asks the opposite. It asks for steady hands, honest limits, and the courage to try one more time. Sometimes that is the miracle.